Hello everyone,
What's
we're
up, guys?
iFIXIT. If you're hoping to see an iPhone 7 teardown, then you are definitely in the right place. There's a lot of familiar faces, which is great. I do have to warn you, we are going to go over the same spiel we do at the beginning of the rest of our talks. Also want to give a big shout out to our AV guys over here who have been so helpful for the past couple of days. So, iFIXIT. First of all, who am I? I'm Scott, and I've talked to so many people in the crowd that I don't think I need to really introduce myself, but I am a teardown engineer. I'm joined by Evan, who's currently hiding.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Evan. Scott and I are teardown engineers at iFIXIT. What does that mean? That means we open stuff up and write repair guides and break stuff so you guys don't have to. Thanks for coming out. We have a pretty good show for you guys lined up.
Yeah, what's iFIXIT? Well, as we've told a lot of you guys over and over again, we make repair manuals. A whole bunch of them. We make them for just about everything. Evan and I really focus on consumer electronics. We do a lot of phones, a lot of tablets, laptops, which is why the iPhone 7 is something very interesting to us. As you can see, we have lots of cool industry partnerships. On our first day, we talked about an industry partnership with Patagonia, which is super cool. Help them fix clothes. So right now we're tearing down a phone, but we also can do zippers. We can do bicycle spokes, the whole works. So why would you want to do it? Well, repair is sustainable, and we love sustainability at iFIXIT. That's very important to us. As I've brought up every day, because this is a big thing for all of us, there is so much e-waste, and it's something that's really easy to overlook. You know, you don't think of, the aluminum cans from your beers or your sodas. You're like, oh, I should recycle this, but you don't really think about your computer. So we want to bring light to the fact that repair helps, sustainability, and that e-waste is actually a problem. Saves you money. iFIXIT users definitely save money. You either throw away a phone. Yesterday I did an example with an old iPhone 3 and talked about how much more it's worth fixed versus how much it's worth as just a piece of junk. I threw this stat up the first day, and iFIXIT users spend, 70%, I think is, 70% less on repairs than the average American homeowner, which is pretty significant. And last thing is I have to harp on is consumer empowerment. It is so important. We're so reliant on people, on these devices. You think of how much we use our cell phones, how much we use our laptops. It's nice to know that you have some power over what we're so reliant on. So another thing we do at iFIXIT is to try to push legislation so that we can have the ability to maintain that little bit of power over our devices. So there's some cool stats. We'll get to that teardown, but if you do want to talk to us about legislation after the fact, please do, because we are very interested in that and have some pretty good stories, actually. We've met some people here, too, that have maybe been on the other side, and we've had some good dialogue with some fun people. Okay, so repair, since we want to make it available, it is open source. Our documentation is free, so please use our site. If you break your phone, just log on. You don't need an account. You can just go to ifixit.com, iPhone 6 display replacement, and it'll pull up. You can look at the repair, and then therefore, I've been saying every day, this is such a technically apt crowd that all of you guys could fix a broken display on an iPhone.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about repair and the community behind us. So Scott and I, we write repair manuals, but there's two of us. We have a team back home, but there's millions of devices, and you guys know all about that. So in order to build repair documentation, we have a community of thousands of people around the world. We offer localization in over 10 different languages, and we're growing in countries around the world every day, most notably India and other developing nations. But I know why you guys are here. You want to see some teardowns. Before we get into the iPhone 7, let's talk about some of the bread and butter of our teardowns. I'm kind of a gadget nerd. I'm also a photography nerd. So this was a Nikon D600 we tore down a couple years back, and it's pretty much gadget porn. There's all sorts of ribbon cables. It's a pretty complicated design, and there's tons of parts, and that's what we like to see. We like breaking things down into the most basic components and then teaching people what's inside, how it works. I could not stand here today without plugging our tools. All of our repair documentation is free, but we need to keep the lights on, and we do that by selling these toolkits right here. We're going to be giving a couple of them away towards the end of our talk, so when we pass this little bag around, pop your business card in, and we'll do a drawing later on. So when we talk about repairability, what are we talking about? We're talking about how easy is it to repair. like exactly how it sounds. And that has two components. How much time and how much money do you need to invest for any given repair? For example, swapping a screen on an iPhone, It's pretty easy. You pop the old one off, you put the new one on, put the screws back in, you're done. With an iPad, you're spending a couple hours opening up the screen and putting a lot of work into it, so it's slightly less repairable. We also look at current design trends. As most of you know, most hardware is becoming smaller, lighter, faster, and sleeker, but that comes at a cost. Most devices nowadays are harder to get into. For example, we tore down the Microsoft Surface laptop. It was a pain. You had to cut it open, and once it's open, it's not going back together. In addition, we like to talk about planned obsolescence, which has been around since the 20s, but is continuing to become it continues to become a growing problem every day. So when we see that, we want to call manufacturers out and make the general public aware that this is an issue. Without further ado, I'm going to hand this back to Scott, and I'm going to start working on this iPhone.
So the iPhone, I have had such a good day today because we've been talking about this, and it's hilarious because Apple is very, very good about not letting people talk about collaboration. So it's been a fun day because people have been talking about the iPhone 7, and so many people in this room have had their hands on something that is in it, which is fun, but no one can talk about it. So it's kind of fun for us because we give all these chip guys marketing because we can talk about it. If we can have the ability to maybe, have some sort of idea of who did what, we can bring to light some of the products that a lot of these intelligent minds have put into these awesome mobile phones. So it's good because we'll go to other manufacturing conventions and we'll call people out, talk about planned obsolescence, and they get mad at us. But nice thing is about being at this one is chip people love us because we are kind of good marketing. So the iPhone 7. Now, I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with it. One of the interesting things that we like to talk about is the courage to get rid of a headphone jack. So when we first got this phone, we really wanted to know kind of what in the world was going to replace that, why get rid of the headphone jack. There were other things, increased water resistance. I think it was the IP67 water resistance rating that they were going for. And then other things that we really care about is just how easy is it to fix. So we do give Apple a hard time about a whole bunch of things, but their phones are relatively easy to work on. Both Evan and myself do it a whole bunch. So as you can see, Evan is starting to get into it. Almost so many iPhones, however many previous generations, including the 7, in order to get into it, there's 2 pentalobe screws at the very bottom. And the thing about pentalobe screws, they're very rare. It's a big barrier to entry, but iPhones have been using them for generations and generations now, so that they're kind of starting to, people are actually starting to acquire the P2 screwdriver bit. Another interesting thing is once we pulled the screws out, in this phone, it's been opened, so there's not adhesive, but we did find adhesive holding the display in place. Now, our kind of guess as to why there was adhesive holding this in place was that water resistance rating. Now, it's kind of a thing for us. We don't like adhesive because it's a pain to get through. And so if you have a phone with a bunch of adhesive, it's going to be an issue to try to open that phone up and get to whatever you need to get to. For example, a battery. Once you open the phone, you break through all the adhesive, and the only way you're going to get that thing back exactly how it was is to put on new adhesive. And no one's hands are necessarily as good as that, deposition machine in the manufacturing plant. So that being said, they still use some screws, they still use the clips, and the adhesive wasn't too crazy to get through, unlike other phones that we've seen in the past. Other specs that we were looking for, we had cameras, and that was one of the big points for the new iPhones is here you can see there's the 7 Plus, which actually has 2 cameras. We're working on the 7 right now, which only has 1. Evan has his 7 Plus right next to it, which does have that dual camera that's supposed to just have phenomenal photos. But even the 7, they try to do a whole bunch of software stuff to try to refine that photography. We're super lucky, as I brought up a few times, there's a company called Creative Electron, and they give us neat X-ray images to kind of help us see what we're about to get into. And when we got this, we're like, all right, this is not all that different than what we've seen previously, but as we were saying earlier, we're curious of what's using all that headphone jack real estate. So we could already kind of see there's some stuff where the headphone jack once was. So it was pretty exciting. There's the pentalobe bits, and this is a good picture, I'm glad, since Evan is moving at the speed of sound, you can see that there is some adhesive. And then there's also some hidden ribbon cables. Evan never hits them because he's a master, but that's a big thing with any sort of phone repairs. There are usually cables that are gonna connect that display. And now if you're super ambitious and you just rip the thing off, you're gonna fry it, and it's gonna be bad, because then a lot of times the connectors on the board is what really goes. So you gotta be gentle. Like I said, Evan is a master. I don't know the last time that he's probably ripped a ribbon connector.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Yeah,
Years
the Karma drone, so yesterday. Yeah, and another thing that Evan, when he was cruising through this, this phone was different in that it opened differently. Almost all of our iPhones that we've seen up to this point kind of opens around the top, but this one actually opened from the side like a book, which was kind of nice. I think it was hard because we were expecting it to open the other way, but it's a more intuitive way to open a device for the consumers that we like. I mean, engineers are expecting all sorts of different things, but maybe that middle school teacher that we're always talking about that we're trying to get to fix her stuff, this is a more intuitive opening mechanism. So, Evan, where are you right now? Are you?
I'm headed for the barometric vent, but we can do the battery.
Let's do the battery.
All right, let's talk about the battery.
So, the battery, and
I'm going to let you guys know right now, I am cheating. When we first got this iPhone, I don't know how many of you guys have replaced a battery or opened up an iPhone, but they have these neat little adhesive strips. They're at the bottom right here, and you just pull them out real slowly and carefully, and if you're careful, they come out like that. Very often they snap, and you end up prying them open, but today we're lucky, and I took the adhesive strips out about a month ago. So we're going to cheat and go ahead and pull this battery right out.
And we've talked about this. I think this is probably we have talked about this, but this is one of the best examples of where this kind of adhesive is an issue. So opening the phone and trying, we see adhesive, and if there's adhesive and it's like, okay, it's waterproofing, there's a reason. But there's been a move to just glob glue underneath the battery to hold it in place. And we know this is not the only way to do it, yet it's the way a lot of people do it. And so for us, it's kind of tough. We get pretty frustrated. I just stripped apart the Samsung S8, and the battery is it is so locked in place. But the other thing about that is these batteries, these lithium-ion batteries, if you break a cell or deform it enough, it's pretty much a little bomb, and it just has the craziest flame if it's charged. And I just popped one the other day. It was a little scary, but we have a bunch of sand buckets. So we're pretty happy with the Apple's version of battery adhesive, because they're these cool pull tabs. That being said, I've broken them. You've probably broken at least a couple.
More than a couple.
Yeah, so it's still not perfect, but it is a step in the right direction in our eyes.
No.
Have you pulled it on this one? Since the battery was nice, did you have to pull out the Taptic engine?
I did.
Okay.
But it's right here. Let's talk about the Taptic engine.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool.
So you can see the Taptic.
Actually, let's talk about the barometric vents.
Because that comes out first.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the headphone jack and the courage to remove it. So the question at hand is what actually replaced the headphone jack? If we go back to the video really quick, you'll see right here there is this little piece of plastic sitting right here at the bottom. I can't grab it very well. That's sitting right there. That's exactly where the headphone jack is. That's what Apple exchanged. And what does it do? It allows for equal pressure inside and outside the iPhone, so that the altimeter, the barometer can work correctly and still maintain water resistance. Directly on top of that, you'll find the Taptic engine, which provides haptic feedback. It simulates the click of a home button, even though the home button in this guy is solid state. And that was another move they made to improve the water resistance rating.
Okay.
And now that those guys are out, we can talk about...
We'll still, because I do have that cool X-ray of the... Yeah, so we can even go more in depth. So one of them, our poor AV guys, we give them a run for their money, and it's the end of the day too. But you guys are the best. So the Taptic engine. So I really like to talk about this because my background is in fitness wearables, and waterproofing is a thing. And so the home button on this guy is actually not a button. Mechanical buttons are pretty much, they're very common in all of our devices. And even on the iPhone 7, the volume buttons, the power buttons on the side, those are mechanical. Now, the home button, on the other hand, it is not. It is actually just a steady little spot, but it has capacitive touch sensors on it. So that provides some input, and then this Taptic engine is actually an actuator, and that's what creates the kind of illusion of a button. So you have the capacitive touch sensor, it detects your finger, and then this guy actually does a little bit of shaking, a little jiggling, and all of a sudden it feels like you clicked a button. I had a person at our little table today, and she thought it was a button. We've always complained that it feels kind of fake. It doesn't really feel like a button, but she was like, no, it's a button, right? And I'm like, no, it isn't. So what ends up happening is with this linear resonance actuator, is it's not too far off. Inductors, it's reliant on magnets and weights. And what it does is it's very, very precise, and it essentially shakes these weights and creates vibration, and then that's where that haptic feedback comes from. This is a little different. We did do the Nintendo Switch, and they do it about a different axis. So this Taptic engine does have a new geometry. It does have a different kind of layout that's different than other actuators that we've seen in other devices. Oh, there's the adhesive strip that I was talking about, and it's a horrible picture because it doesn't show how far it stretches. Because these things, I mean, you're really, I don't know, what are you thinking, 3 feet before it pops out?
About that. It's surprisingly long.
It's really long. So this is kind of a deceiving thing. Evan has a technique where he likes to just keep rolling it, because as you pull, it usually, if you snap it here, it's tough. But if you you can be a lot more fine with a spudger and just keep rolling it to remove it. And then it's out, and we have some specs, and we can talk about these later. I think it's a little bit better than the 6S Plus, but it's, for those curious, you can come up and talk to us later. So Evan, where are you at? Since I just, kind of stole the show there for a little bit.
There's a little antenna up here. The cellular antenna is coming out next, and then I think we're headed for the logic board. I did pull the camera out already. Should we take a step and talk about that real quick?
Yeah, hit it.
All right. One thing I want to point out on the camera is if you look real close over here, you can actually see the optical image stabilization in action. I'm sorry, I'm getting all up in your way. But if you see it over here, you can see it shifting with the magnets in place. So I just think it's a neat little feature that they included in this revision that was not in previous years, or was only in the Plus in the previous years. And we talk about specs. It films 4K. It takes, 12 megapixel images?
I think so, yeah. I think those are.
It's an incredibly powerful camera in a very small package, and it shows how far tech has come in a very short period of time. If you guys have the Plus edition with the fake blurred background, that took phenomenal photos. It's pretty incredible.
Okay, so I'll let you hit at that logic board for a while, and I can go on a little tangent. So we got to always talk about iFixIT because that's where we're from, and today we are repping it well in coordinated T-shirts. So if you look at iPhones, there's not a ton of them. And at iFixIT, Evan and I, really for most of the new ones as of late, have pretty much been handling all of the repair documentation for this, because at the end of the day, that's what we care about. So we like to generate our own iPhone guides, because we can do that in-house. We have the bandwidth, if you will, to do that. Now the thing is there's only so many of us, about 6 teardowners and people that are responsible for content and writing guides. And if you look at Android brand fragmentation, we're not doing that. We cannot touch even a fraction of this market because it is huge. So that is why when we're here talking to a bunch of engineers who are capable of ripping their stuff apart, and likely will, we love for people to contribute to the site, because there's no way that Evan and I are going to handle all of this. If we have to come to places like DAC and eat barbecue and speak to people and whatnot, then we're not going to be able to do this. This is just way too much. So I feel like, since I'm with a bunch of engineers, someone here probably has an old Android, and if they take some photos of it and maybe makes a guide and puts it on the site, you have no idea how many people you are going to be helping out. It's amazing. It's a rewarding feeling to know that you're sharing your expertise with the world. All right, Evan, how far did you get? Are you?
Not quite there yet, but we're moving.
Well, what about some bits on there? Because I know there's some weird ones that I was struggling with. Bits. Yeah.
All right, so one thing the iPhone has in common with the Nintendo Switch is tri-point screws. And that's exactly what they sound like. They look like Phillips head bits, but they only have 3 points instead of 4. And that's annoying for a number of reasons. One is that it's just not as common, Everyone and their mother has a Phillips head bit lying around. However, if tri-point bits are not nearly as common. What's also frustrating is that they're not exclusively tri-point bits. They're just tri-point bits in very specific spots. For example, they have tri-point screws over the display cables, over the battery connector, and over one logic board connector, which means there's very pivotal screws that have to come out to do any repair, and those are the ones with the tri-point screws, and everything else is Phillips, which is kind of indicative of Apple's philosophy behind user repair and user access, which is to say they don't want you touching it, which is why we provide parts, we provide tools, and we want to empower you guys to move ahead, which is why we have documentation. I'm gonna get back to the logic board. Scott, you want to take over for a second?
Yeah, well, how much he's probably close. There's also these weird standoff screws in there. Those are a funky one, and we have a very specialized bit for that in our office that I don't think we even share with the world. But you can do it with the flathead, because we forgot ours and we're managing without it. So it's probably part of the reason he's actually making it happen, because I struggle. But in a couple seconds, he will be pulling out the logic board, and this is probably something that I feel wildly uncomfortable talking about in front of all of these people, because like I said earlier, there's so many people here that have actually maybe touched some of the stuff that is on this photo. And actually, we were even walking past some booths and we saw this exact photo put up, and they attributed us, so we're happy. But yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking. So there's a lot of stuff on here, and for us at iFixit, all we're gonna be able to do is just kind of guess and maybe speculate. But things that are worth talking about is that, Apple has this chip, the A10, which is it has an embedded, motion coprocessor, and it's a pretty big deal. And like I said, if I sit here and blabber too much, I guarantee you by the end of this, someone will be able to correct me. So I'm gonna, maybe play my cards right and not talk about it. But we really encourage anyone who, we know you can't talk, but if you, off the record do have something that you maybe can say to us afterwards and just chat, then that would be cool. There's a lot of standards. There's stuff that the reason we can get away with calling out a lot of these is because we have had people correct us in the past, and I obviously am not going to say who, but also not that, we're used to doing this, and all of this is all speculation. So for us, all of these model numbers, Apple is not going to put that data sheet anywhere to be found on the internet. There's no way. So what we have to do is kind of just do our best to speculate. So we look at, things that are kind of surrounding it. We look at previous models of iPhones where we've had some sort of positive confirmation on something that looks similar. And what we end up generating is, we can put some letters and some numbers up there, some model numbers, and often you can maybe see manufacturers' logos. That helps a lot. But it's all speculation. So for us, when we put these up, we are guessing, but it is a very educated guess, and I think more often than not, we're quite correct. So on the back, there's, you flip it over. This is a pretty densely packed little board, and afterwards, I definitely encourage you to just come get a glance, because, like I said, there's probably a lot of you who have touched this in some indirect way. It's not very large. It's actually pretty small. Evan, do you have like a size? Like any way to just maybe even up against a pen?
I mean, here's the iPhone, here's the board. Shows quite a bit. No?
Yeah.
Right there.
So there's a bit of power, a bit of power. Just a capability is a better thing, because power is almost a misnomer in this setting. But it is a very capable amount of silicone crammed in not a very large place. And so for us teardowners, we look at this stuff and we are definitely impressed. Like I said, we're kind of speculating. Evan's a computer science guy, so he has a little bit of a hardware background, I guess some CPE, but Evan, are you going for some of the bottom stuff?
Yeah, I'm headed for the lightning connector and the non-headphone jack.
Okay, and you pulled the speaker out.
Yeah, this is the speaker right here. It's pretty standard. If you look on the back of it, you'll see there's just a 2-pin connection right here. That's one contact, there's the other contact. And you'll also see these 2 little antenna cables, which lead to the Wi-Fi antenna and the Wi-Fi diversity antenna on the front.
Oh man,
it's a neat little
nice
module.
Bag
It's the best I
you
can find. Stay 3. We're running out of containers.
I was gonna say, and I just keep on making everyone stay through all of the presentation. But if you do have interest in competing for some tools, throw a business card in. We'll have someone come and draw. I'll just let you guys hand that out. Or pass that around. Just throw it around for a little bit, and I feel like we're missing some cool tidbits somewhere along the way. Teardowns, they're a very dynamic thing. So this is honestly, a lot of the teardowns we've been doing here, they're not the most authentic because we have torn these down before. And even the iPhone 7 for us is, I just finished a bunch of repair guides. So you're not getting quite that, authentic experience of us essentially breaking the crap out of these things. Because whenever we do a teardown, we essentially just wreak havoc. It is carnage. And a lot of people have been asking,
hey, speak for yourself.
Fair enough. It's pretty bad. We put stuff back together. Jeff Swoven, one of our our teammates is really good. But I did the Google Pixel phone. I shattered that screen, and we did the Nintendo Switch. You braked?
I've broken an Amazon Echo. I've broken the Karma.
The Karma. Yeah.
We have our fair share of mistakes, but you know, when you're opening something up for the first time, there's going to be some struggles, and that's why we make repair guides, because no one's going to get it right the first time. And that's how you learn. Speaking of which, we're getting right here. Also, as you can see, I'm using a guitar pick, or these used to be guitar picks. Now we design our own, and they're perfect for this purpose. I'm just using it to peel the lightning cable, right off of the rear case.
And that's almost it. So, I mean, this is, like I said, it's not the most authentic thing. We've done this before, but it doesn't take a ton of time to rip apart an iPhone. And that's one of the things that's worthy to kind of talk about, because when we did this relatively quickly, and then so the question kind of becomes, like, if you do need to replace it, I don't know, like, can you? Is it going to be a thing? If your battery burns out, will you actually be able to repair it? So, Evan, I do have the question. Can you repair this? I mean...
Yes, you can.
Right.
Let's talk about why. Overall, we gave the iPhone 7 a 7 out of 10. That's pretty much in line with previous iPhones as well. The 6S got a 7, 6 got a 7. You all can check the website to see what the previous scores were. Scott, you want to move ahead to the next slide and explain?
You have this. I gave you the thing.
Oh, perfect.
Nope, next to you. There you go.
See, perfect. All right. Battery, like previous years, is straightforward to access. It's not too difficult as long as you get the pull tabs out correctly. And not that you should be bending batteries, but even if you don't, even if you snap the pull tabs, you know, you're replacing the battery anyway. A little bend never hurt anyone. The solid state home button also eliminates a point of failure, because that's a pretty commonly failing component. Let's talk about things that are not so good. The improved water resistance also comes at a cost. There's a ton of adhesive around the rim that you guys did not get to see, so it makes it a little bit harder, but at the same time, it's really hard to design a water-resistant phone without adding some adhesive. So we'll cut some slack over there. So the display assembly is the first component to come out. We really like that because everyone shadows their screen eventually. It's not if, it's when. They're delicate. However, it still has water resistance, which means it's a complicated procedure. And I didn't get a chance to take apart the display assembly, but it's a little bit more complicated than it was in previous years, which means you're going to spend a little bit more time. Finally, something I cannot harp on enough, tri-point screws are not fun to deal with. They don't bite quite as well as Phillips, and it's just there was no need to include them. Phillips screws do the job just fine. They're an open standard. We love to see them everywhere, and the inclusion of tri-points was simply a means of keeping consumers out of their devices. So that's a hard boo on Apple for that. Overall, though, we give it a 7 out of 10, and you know, we can give our seal of approval.
Yeah, and one thing that we did just see too is MacBook Pros came out with the touch bar. Wait, with touch bar, because there's no pronoun, with touch bar.
MacBook Pro with touch bar.
Yeah, Apple. So the cool thing we did see is they just had a refresh. So we tore apart the first one, we destroyed the touch bar. We just took apart the refresh, we destroyed the touch bar. But also notice there were tri-point screws that weren't there, because there was an inclusion of one, and now it's not there anymore. So maybe, you know, maybe they listened. I don't know. We'll see as things go on. Who should we
did everyone get a chance to put their business card in here?
Anyone who was curious? We got one more.
Bring it up. All right. Who should we get to draw today?
Because we got you're here again. Thank
Eli,
you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but Eli can't pull you up again. I got to keep it new. Should we do AV guys?
Yeah. You, sir.
Yeah, you're right here.
How old are you?
Well, did you put a card in? Oh,
okay.
Well then that works.
Right,
yeah.
Perfect. Come on up.
All right. So pull. Well, first, what's your name?
Max.
What do you study, Max? University of Texas at Dallas. What do you study?
Computer science.
Right on.
Nice.
All right.
All right, so right now Max is drawing for one of the EETs. We are giving away an EET, a ProTech, and a UBK today.
Okay. Claude Mogani? Claude?
Claude,
Yeah, there you
down.
go.
There you go.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you,
I
sir.
respect that. Did you win already? Or are you just being nice?
What a guy.
Yeah, I really respect that. That's cool. All right, well, here we go. Everyone thank Claude. Anyone who gets this toolkit, you owe Claude a big thank you. Buy him a beer later. Okay, thank you. Renan Neto?
Come on down.
All right, there we go.
Awesome.
You owe Claude a beer, dude. All right.
There you go, sir. Absolutely. All right, now we're giving away a ProTech. This is the toolkit I was using. If you want to start a repair business, this is step 1 right here.
Oh, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong. Atreyi Ball? Atreyi Ball? That, yeah? Yeah? Hey.
Hey, come on down. There you go.
How do you say your name?
Three.
Atre?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry I said it wrong the first time. But you got a tool, so that's cool. Yeah. All right.
Finally, we are giving away our universal bit kit. It has 128 bits, and I challenge whoever receives this to find a screw that they cannot unscrew with this kit. I like to call it the Father's Day gift because it comes in a nice wooden box.
It looks cool.
I have one on my desk. I never move it.
Okay. Oh, Anders. I think this is you, Nordstrom, right? Yeah.
Hey, come on down.
Hey, cool. That's
Awesome.
great.
There you go, sir. Round of applause,
I swear I
guys.
didn't rig that. I did recognize him, but I
Absolutely.
didn't rig that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's cool. He's been hanging out with us, so he's he's one of our buddies. But we didn't rig it. I swear. And then last,
Right.
Max, we got to throw him
Max.
some tools for helping us out. And a
Thank
computer
you.
scientist at a hardware convention is pretty rad. So thank you for showing
Absolutely.
up. Yeah, everyone.
Well, yeah,
If you have
thank you guys so
questions,
much
come
for
hang out with
coming
us,
out.
and we're just gonna be here cleaning up.
Be
so.
around. Put the iPhone back together. If you have any questions, come up. Feel free. Come top shop. Otherwise, thank you for coming out.
Yeah, you're excused.